Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special training with This Dot. Today, we are awesomely blessed to have Colby Fayock of Cloudinary. He is the director of DevX over there, and he's going to show us a lot about what's going on in Cloudinary and how to supercharge our apps with that. Uh, my name's Dustin Goodman. I'm an engineering manager here at This Dot, and I'm going to be taking instruction from Colby on how we're going to make this awesome app today. Colby, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me here. Pretty excited to dive in.
Awesome. So, where do you want to start today?
So I was thinking we were going to play around with a travel app. So if you've ever been to any kind of like travel website or maybe Scott's Cheap Flights or something like that, you've probably seen some big beautiful imagery of destinations all over the world, but they all have one thing in common. They have those big images, and how do we make sure that we're actually delivering those performantly? And on top of that, there's a lot more that you can think about to make it easier as a developer to work with the images and video, such as dynamic cropping and resizing, using AI and all those kind of things. So we're gonna just kind of poke around and see how we can make that as best as we can, as performant as we can.
Oh, I love it. So you shared some stuff with me ahead of time, so I guess I'll
I
start
did.
sharing my screen, and we can all look at this. And I just realized I put this overlay in a terrible position. I put it right on top of my nav bar, and now
The
I
zoom
can't
overlay will get
actually.
you.
Yeah, every time. Um, but yeah, so this is what we're going to be building, right? Or
Yeah.
this is the end product, so to speak.
Yep. So the idea is just a little simple image gallery in the front, and then once you select a destination, it has a little bit more interactivity, and that includes just a basic image at the top. You have a video there, which will even show how we can do adaptive bitrate streaming. But also then at the bottom, some user-generated content, UGC, where you can allow people to actually add their own photos so that you can have a little personalized touch to it.
I love it. Well, we'll have a lot of fun with that today.
Yeah.
Um, so I already cloned the repo that you wanted me to work with, so I guess I'll pull that up and maybe run the project.
Yeah,
Here,
let's do it.
I'll do it through VS Code. It's not my usual, but why not? Let's have fun with it. Um, so it looks like we're using Next.js. Does that mean we're
Yeah.
going to be playing with React Server components today?
Yes, we are going to be playing with React Server components. I had to think about that for a second. Yeah, so one of the nice things about it is I tried to make this demo as purely React Server components as I can. A lot of the components that ship with the Next Cloudinary integration are actually client components due to the nature of the interactivity of yeah, things like videos and the upload widget itself. But we can bring those in still and render them through a client component page, right? Or server component page. So we'll see how we can do that and how to work amongst that kind of setup.
Love it. So I guess that means if I come look at our dependencies, looks like we've got some React, some Tailwind, some Next.js. I don't see Cloudinary in here yet. Am I just missing something, or is that something we're going to be adding today?
Yeah, so we'll be adding that. This is really just a basic vanilla starting point that doesn't have anything Cloudinary included, so we can kind of walk through the entire process of what that looks like. So really just all it includes right now is it's a standard Next.js app, but it includes some Tailwind styling to make it look a little prettier to look at. But then we also have just a couple icons in there. I don't even, I might have only used those two icons in the nav bar, but they're solid icons. So I think it was probably worth it. But yeah, so
Yeah.
this is the starting point. And you can see if you think about that other page that we looked at, it's probably not optimal in a few ways. So the first way is that's probably immediately present is it just looks a little wonky with all the different image sizes, right? Um, but then on
Yeah.
top of that, let's break up in that network tab.
Oh, I got a little aggressive on the button presses apparently. All right. Should I disable caching and all that, or
Yeah, probably that way we can show like the initial network request, which everybody will be subject to. But if we filter on the images, just so we can get a filtered look, we can see that we're loading some pretty large images. And, realistically, I would hope somewhere in the pipeline of managing these images are going to do some kind of optimization to it. But realistically, a lot of the times you have content managers who just aren't technical, so they don't even know what optimization means. So what I did is I pulled these images from Unsplash, so they're just the raw images being served. But we can see that they're, multiple megabytes each. That's huge. And that's just kind of killing the page performance. Um, for this little app we got here. So part of it's
Yeah.
also how can we reduce the size of those and optimize them so that we're not delivering that much page size to our visitors.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, man, images should probably be only, I don't know, couple K if I can help it, like that user
Hmm.
experience. And then I'm also looking at these are all JPEGs. So like, are we gonna be able
Yeah.
to convert these into like a web-friendly format or something?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So JPEG, we know and love it. It's as old as the web, probably, right? It's as old as the web, I think. But it's not the most modern and efficient format that we can use on the web. So we have new technologies such as WebP, we have AVIF, even JPEG XL, which, hopefully we get a little bit more adoption in that area. But we can still see that we're able to really push the boundaries of how we package up the images and serve them to have less of an effect of that weight on the end user. So part of what's beautiful about this package is we kind of get that out of the box. So we'll see that once we install it, it kind of just works.
Ooh, all right. Well, I want to see it just working. So what's
Cool.
next?
So the starting point is just to get first of all, I guess we got to get the images in Cloudinary itself. So did you already
Yeah.
upload all those images to your account?
Yeah, just for everybody
Perfect.
else's sake. I've already set up my Cloudinary account. We have those beautiful images all loaded up here, ready to go.
Cool. And if anybody happens to want to follow along, that demo starter should be available, and all those images are in that right in the public folder that somebody could copy and into their cloud account as well. Um,
Hmm.
but so
And
now that we have those images in there, the next step is to start installing and configuring the Cloudinary integration. Yep, those are the images.
yeah.
So if we want to open up next.cloudinary.dev to show what that is, well, I'm sorry,
Oh,
in the browser.
sorry. I'm with you now.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Next.js Cloudinary integration that we've built to try to build as great of an experience in here as we can. The core component around this is the CLD image component, where you can see in this example here, this is a very expressive example where we have a lot of features going on just to kind of show what you can do. But as you can imagine, we can do everything from the basic optimization to completely transforming the image into something else, which is what we see in that example at the top there, including changing the colors, changing the size, adding text on top, changing the background, just doing a lot of things to really have a creative way to basically like a Photoshop API, right? Only you're able to do it at scale. But if we, so the image component itself is essentially a wrapper around the Next.js image component that you already know. So it is a drop-in replacement as long as you're uh, pointing to your Cloudinary public IDs for that asset. But then we extend it with Cloudinary tech to make it amazing.
I was going to ask, is it a replacement for Next.js or, and like you said, it's a superset. That's kind of
Yes.
cool.
So the image component, the Next.js image component itself is wonderful. It does a lot of great things. It optimizes well, but we're able to take that a step further using Cloudinary Tech for that optimization process, which has some benefits on its own. But then it kind of takes the transformations aspect to it to a new level. So yeah, exactly what you're doing. You want to first install the package, then we can start to configure it with your Cloudinary account. So the next
Yeah.
step for the basic would be the environment variable.
And just because I put some other secrets in there earlier, I'm not going to open that file, but
Fair
just trust
enough.
that I did it ahead of time and I used the right values.
Good
I
job.
don't have to go rotate. Yeah, fun story. Last week I was on my own stream and I accidentally exposed my Shopify secrets. Had to go do a
Uh,
full rotation by the end of the stream. It was
yeah, it
not a good
happens to
day.
everybody.
So, exactly. Learned my lesson last
Yeah.
week. So, we'll do it the right way this week.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so then we can kind of dive in to get started using the component. So if we want to go back to the basic usage, just to kind of see what that looks like inside of the documentation. So really, like I said, it's a drop-in replacement for the Next.js image component and really the image tag itself, as long as you have the right parameters. The only thing that's a little bit tricky in the land of React server components is that it's currently not equipped to be dropped into a server component itself. So we basically have two options where either we could add the use client directive at the top of the file, which isn't ideal because that makes the entire tree a client component. Or we can create a very basic wrapper component around the CLD image component that we can then drop in as a server component. Now, in the future, I'm hoping to address this, but it's a little complicated as I need to make sure that I'm not adding that automatically to everything. So I'm just trying to figure out the way to do that before just trying to blow things up. So I'm getting there, but it'll be a little bit of time before that works out of the box. But let's go ahead and set that up. It should be pretty safe, painless.
Okay. Well,
So
I'm
the first
gonna
thing,
copy
okay,
this
yeah,
snippet, right? That's what I
yeah,
want to do.
yep, that's
Yeah.
a good starting place.
Okay.
But
Where do I
then
want to put it?
let's create a new component first. So in the components, let's create a CLD image component.
TypeScript or
Yeah,
JS?
let's do
What's your
TypeScript.
preference? I like TypeScript. All right. So maybe start with this.
Yeah, and then what we can do is honestly, we're probably just going to spread out and pass all the props in as is. So what I typically do when I'm writing this, I do like CLD image as CLD image default, and then that's the component that I pass through. Maybe there's a better way, but that's just kind of what I've been doing, since you can't have the two names in the conflict, right? But then ultimately, I return that CLD image default and just spread the props through. So we can honestly get rid of the width, the height, and all those different ones.
So got it. So let's get some props, get some pretty
Exactly.
formatting.
And now, because the props is yelling at us, what we can do is we can import CLD image props, which is an exported type definition that makes it easy for us to do.
So I can just do one of these. Yeah.
Just like that. Yep. And I think,
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So usually I export as default for components, but I guess that's
so
whatever your personal
we'll
preference.
keep you know what? Let's keep it consistent with how you want to
Oh,
do it.
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It depends on the project.
Fair
Some
enough.
projects we like to do default. Sometimes we like to do it named. If this
Makes sense.
component could possibly be, or this file could possibly export multiple components, maybe we want to do it that way.
Fair enough.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
but let's do the default. I like it.
Awesome. So the last thing that we need to do is add that use client directive to the top of it. That way it's opting this component into the client tree, but then we don't have to opt the entire file. So now we're ready to use this. So we can head back, or we can head over to the home page.
Okay, so app index, hopefully. Nope, not that one.
It's app page. Yeah.
App page.
Yeah.
They changed the name. I
I
always
know, I
forget
know, I
that.
know. Yeah. And then we can import that component. We have aliases, so it can be just like that container there, only CLD image.
And my autocomplete got it on one.
Perfect.
Love that.
Yeah. And then, like I said, it's a drop-in replacement. So we can just switch that image tag with the CLD image. And now the only thing that we'll need to do, though, is we need to update that source to reference the public ID. Now, did you also ahead of time update that destinations file with your public ID by chance?
No, I did
No?
not.
Okay, okay.
That would have
So
been
we'll need
smart.
so we'll need to do that quick. So if you open up the destinations.json file, yeah. So right now what it's doing is it's passing in all those local URLs. Now, technically, we could pass in full public external URLs, and we can use the fetch API to download that external file and serve it from Cloudinary. But since we don't have an external URL. We just have a local URL. We can't quite do that in this particular example. So we'll need to copy over those public IDs.
Okay, so something like, oop, double clicked. Probably shouldn't have double clicked, but that public ID is probably helpful.
Yep. And you
Because
should,
I also,
yeah,
is there a better way to look at? Oh, grid mode. There we go.
there we go.
Yeah, I was trying to like, how can I better look at this?
Yeah, I prefer grid mode as well.
So I can copy that and that. You'll have to help me with the
So it should be destinations.json, and I think it's under source data. Yeah.
There we go.
And then you can see there's a public ID, just your public ID, and we can swap them in for each of the different countries. Do you know
Yeah, you're
which
gonna have to.
image? So
I
that one's
don't
Brazil.
actually.
The first
That's
one that you have
Brazil.
the checked one was Brazil. The second one, what was that second one? The second one is Arizona. So it depends on what ID you copied first.
I have Arizona. Oh, but that didn't copy it the way I wanted it. What's the best way to
Try
copy?
double clicking into it, and I wonder if we can use the arrows to go back and forth between the different images. So you can copy it easily here. And
Okay.
then can you hit right? Does that
I,
take you to the next one?
it does not.
No,
That would be a
bummer.
great
Okay.
feature though.
Yeah, I'll add that to the feature request
Yeah.
list. Um,
But here, I can copy it that
oh,
way,
that
I think.
works.
So
Nice.
that looks like Iceland or Greenland. I always forget which one. Iceland. There we
Oh,
go.
yeah. Yep.
I was like,
I,
that looks like Iceland.
Yeah. I just tried to get a
That
nice
looks
variety of different images and I like
I
that kind
love
of
it.
picture. So I
Um,
I looked for one intentionally for the Northern Lights.
or- Yeah, as soon as I saw the Northern Lights, I'm like, that's probably Iceland. Okay, that's not Italy because that's Italy.
Yeah, so that's UK.
Oh, that's the UK. Um,
Hopefully I got good representative images. Honestly, I just tried to search different things in Unsplash. I
I,
think I searched travel photos, to be honest.
so fun one for you. I've got a Welsh Italian on the call with us right now, so
Ah,
he can be the judge of that for us.
okay.
Uh,
And the
how'd
only
we do,
other
Simone?
consideration approved? Okay.
He's looking.
So the only other consideration is, are those in a folder or were those just in the root level?
They were in the root level. I
Okay.
was wondering if I should put them in a directory or not.
It doesn't really matter, especially since this is your account. It's really whatever
Okay,
you want to do. Um,
great.
but as long as those IDs are in there and everything's saved, that should load up.
Okay, and what if actually it won't
Oh,
because
one more thing.
I
Yeah, we need to we need to update that in reference to the public ID. That's right. Yeah.
So here's a question. How would that have changed if I did put them in a directory?
So the only difference that you would have needed to realistically do there was add the folder name to the public ID.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it would have been slash or folder slash public ID.
Yeah. So in mine, like, because I have an examples account that I created a few different ones. So I created an example or a folder called My Travel Website, where my public ID would be my travel website slash that ID.
That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
But hey, now we can see all those images. And something that's a bit more striking in the network tab there is look at the file sizes. And we didn't really do much there.
Yeah, I love that. They're, I mean, I would say
So
a
the
tenth of
interesting
the
thing
size, but I think
too,
smaller.
the interesting thing too is we do see some JPEGs in there. Now the tricky thing is especially the different variables of an image, if you think about it. So an image can be really tiny or it can be huge, right? And I'm talking about like the resolutions and the different formats are di differently efficient or like more efficient at different sizes. So I forget exactly which is which, but like some formats are better at tiny images, some formats are better at huge images. So that might vary a little bit depending on the images that you're using. But as we can see, regardless, we're automatically optimizing, getting huge results there, and then some differ depending on what it is. But the nice thing is we can take this a little bit of a step further. And I was alluding to the huge resolution, we can actually dynamically crop those down by entering more reasonable sizes. Not only can we resize it, but we can also crop it. So we can kind of do that in a little double whammy here, if you will. Um,
Okay.
so I forget what size did I use in my example. I'm pulling it up here just because I thought it looks nice. Let's see, 730 by 900. So if we open back up that home page, oh, it looks like I already have it in there. So I guess I forgot to update the starter. So we'll just leave 730 by 900 in there as is. But now let's add a prop of crop and we're gonna set that as fill. So if you can think about if you're setting a background image and you fill the what is it fill what is it background image contains is it contains
Contains
where it
or
fills
cover.
this cover, yeah, covers what I'm thinking, it fills the space. So it's basically doing the same thing where it's trying to use all the space without any extra padding on the side. So it's just really filling it. But one thing that we also do on top of that is we have what's called gravity of auto. So it's automatically going to find the most interesting part of the image and center that crop based off of that. So once you hit save, and if we take a look inside of the app, everything's looking super uniform. We can see that the subjects of the images are as in the center as they can be realistically to the size of them. And I think that's looking pretty nice and uniform.
I would say so. I want to go to all these places now.
I know, right? But as let's see, did the file sizes change too much? We're not doing drastic differences in the sizing, so it might not be a crazy difference here.
It looks like they
Weirdly, it looked
grew a little bit,
yeah, that's weird.
except for the Northern Lights. That one stayed the same size, and that surprised me. But the rest of them grew just a smidge. Let's do a
Yeah,
hard
that's weird.
refresh just to see if that changes.
Yeah,
I'm always curious if there's like any cache involved.
that one is 29 kilobytes. Yeah,
Okay, so let's see. It actually shrunk that time. That's
yeah,
wild.
yeah, weird.
Yeah, interesting.
If you look at the Z103, I'm just trying to compare some of the images.
Yeah. So
Well,
here's
it
one.
shrunk a little bit. So like we didn't do a drastic difference in the sizes, right? So depending on what it is, if you go to from like a 6,000 by 6,000 image down to a 1,000 by 1,000 image, that's a pretty drastic size reduction, right? So it's going to differ based off of, the actual extent of the cropping that you're doing. But ultimately, the end result is we have these really nice, much smaller images that are being served here. Now, one thing that you can also do is you can set some responsive sizing on that. And I don't think I did that in the demo, but that's worth also mentioning as well, is that's something that's baked into the Next.js image component itself. So right now, I think it just has like a one times and two times image. I think that's what the image component does out of the box. But what you can do is you can set the sizes parameter and define how many, like the available sizes that you want for the image. So for this, we don't have to do all the different sizes. Just as an example, at a desktop size, you could even do like 33 width, just to kind of show proof of, example.
Yeah,
Or you
so
can
what's
even
my
do like
syntax
100W
here?
just to give some sizes.
What's going to be my syntax here for doing that?
So it's kind of like media queries. I can't give you like a exact how
So
to.
like,
So it's
or I guess max width maybe.
and then you would wrap that in here. Let me look up the documentation.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I'm
Is
gonna be
it is
honest,
it
I'm
on
not
that
as good
next
at
media
that.
site?
So I do have an example on the nextcloudinary.dev, and I just have a simple like it goes from full width to. So if you go to guides on the left under resources,
Mm-hmm.
under responsive images. So I just have an example there, and it looks like I do have a good example. The max width might not be completely aligned, but what this is going to give is the three column to the two column to the one column. But just as an example, unless you do want to get it perfect here, we can kind of just see that it's going to build out all those responsive images for us.
Yeah, I kind of want to mess with that for a second. Um,
So then what we'd want to do is we'd want to find all those different breakpoints, and you should be able to see the tailwind breakpoints above. If I'm not mistaken, I think you can, we probably don't need to do this now, but you can programmatically access the tailwind breakpoints to do that dynamically. But I haven't actually dove in. I just saw that you can do that. But if we like
yeah,
inspect one of the images themselves, we can now see these, we should now be able to see the source set actually defined where previously it wasn't. Or let me correct that. Source set would have just had the one times and two times, where now it has all those different sizes. So it's a lot more meaningful in the different sizes that it's trying to present depending on the size of the browser.
yeah, I see our sizes right here, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So we should
and
be
so
able
I
to see
guess
a
when
win
I
there as well for the size of the images that are getting loaded, especially as they shrink.
question, I have to. This is the part I always forget. Do I have to refresh now,
Yes, so in
or are
Chrome
they
specifically, if you load an image at a bigger size, it won't reload the smaller sizes. I'm pretty sure the other browsers uh, do reload the image, but Chrome specifically doesn't.
interesting? Okay, so this was at the 760 breakpoint. This is that's at a smaller breakpoint. Those look the same.
They do look the same. I wonder if it's partly because we didn't fully flesh out. Do you want to inspect one of those URLs?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, here's I think this is the Z image. Oh no, this is different. But which part do we want to look at specifically?
So at the end of the URL, there's going to be a final width parameter. And I think what I'm actually doing that is a little bit of a problem is that, and I'm currently working on a fix for this, that we use the specified width as the basis of the image size, and we don't expand the size beyond that. So that might be why that's happening that way. So if you look at some of the URLs, the beginning width is 730, and if it goes above 730, we don't load a bigger size.
Got it. And we're at 136. So that would explain it. So
Well, the
maybe I need to,
136 size should be tiny. So I'd be curious if you go back to that and a hard refresh and look in the network tab.
And we were looking at the Brazil one specifically, which I believe
So
was,
that's definitely that doesn't seem like it's a 136 image, right? Unless it's scrolling
yeah,
to the container. So something funky must be going on.
yeah. I'll leave that as an exercise for later, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody has an idea, feel free to pop in the chat and let us know what we're
Did you
missing.
refresh again after at that size?
I thought I did. Here, let me do a, there's the hard refresh.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
they generally look a tiny bit smaller than.
It's just interesting because in the preview, they're still huge. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I wonder if it grows to the container in that. Um, but no, so like look at that. You're loading the 640. I wonder if it's partly because we don't have the super accurate sizes, and I don't
Hmm.
know if it's worth spending the time doing that. But you know, if you have the correct sizes, perhaps that's the issue.
You want to try that, or
It's
do you
hard.
want to move on to the next thing?
I personally think it might make sense to move on to the next thing, but it depends on what you think would be most valuable, I guess.
Let's move on to the next thing for now, and maybe if we have time, we'll come
Yeah,
back to this.
that sounds good.
Okay, so what is the next thing? Speaking of.
Cool. So I think on the homepage we're pretty set. The ultimate goal was to kind of format the same and generally optimize the images. And you know, I think from an optimization perspective, we more than accomplished that. But now let's actually click through to one of the destinations. And I think generally speaking, I collected images from Brazil as the example, so we can use that. Where if we click through,
Okay, there it goes. Didn't register the click.
So we have a couple things here that we want to accomplish. And I'd say, first of all, that image at the top, that's not being optimized, right? So how do we optimize that one? So if we go to the code, the way that we're currently loading that particular image is we're loading it as a background image. Now, of course, I'm sure we could figure out a way to throw the CLD image tag in there, but that's probably not necessary, as we can just we can dynamically generate those images just using a helper function that the library actually provides as well. So we don't need to go through, if we want to use background images, we certainly can. So that's going to be if we want to go to the top and import this new or if you want to go to the documentation, I can show where that lives an example quick. So on the side under helpers, it's going to be the get CLD image URL. And if we click basic usage, the API is exactly the same as the Next.js image component. They literally get forwarded to this function. The only difference, of course, is it's a function as opposed to a component, and the semantics there. But you know, ultimately, we see the source, width, and height, which is all we need to define to create that. So if we go back there, we can import that new function, and
Maybe
yep,
in here.
yep, that works.
Uh,
And so what we'll want to do is we probably don't even need to define the width and height. We will define the width and height to resize it down, but just to start, we can create the URL without it. Since we're generating that URL, you don't technically need a width and height on a Cloudinary URL, so we can just use that as is for this particular function. But then for that public ID, it should be destination.image.public ID, as long as we did update those public IDs, so that should work.
hmm So it should be that. Although I can't spell apparently.
Well, I think you're getting a type error because destination might not exist. So if you move that
Oh,
underneath that redirect, I think you should be okay.
you're so smart. Yep, that's it.
Awesome. So now we can update the background image URL with that.
All right, and then we could just do a little copy paste right there.
Yeah.
Let my formatter take over, I guess. And if we load this now, um,
So it might take a second the first time that it loads because it's doing the processing, but then from there on, it's cached and served from the CDN, and it'll be super snappy. But as we can see, why are we getting a 6.6 megabyte size? I wonder if it's just so big, but it's the same file.
huh,
Is that one's from Cloudinary?
that I, we can double check, make sure that I didn't mess this up. It's possible that I didn't put that one in, but so if we go to our destination, we go find Brazil,
Yeah.
our image, and
Let's
there's our
inspect
public
that
ID.
URL. 'Cause I'm surprised at how big that is.
Yeah.
So it has the F auto Q auto. So maybe that particular image just isn't as prone to, like if you open that up in a new tab, for instance, the request URL or yeah. So I guess it's just such a big image that it wasn't uh
Yeah.
that's weird because on the homepage it optimized really well.
That is
Okay,
true.
well, now we can pull that down by resizing it, right? So I think the sizing that I did in the demo, this could really be personal preference if you want to support Retina images, so on and so forth. But I ended up doing 2560, which is the max width that image was able to be inside of that container. And then I did a 854 height, which I tried to correlate with the size that the height of the actual container will always be as it gets pulled as it shrinks. Um, so
And
now
that
if we
shrunk a
look at
lot.
it, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a drastic size difference. Now the image is still generally big. That's going to happen when you're trying to load these big background images, but this is the optimize and reduce size of that image. And showing that it's JPEG, which is interesting, which it just must be this particular image, depending on the colors and everything that's inside, might just be better off with JPEG in this particular instance.
That's awesome. I like that. I'll say this, like as somebody who really wants to put images everywhere on a website, one of the things
Mm.
is like, should I put it in WebP? Should I put it in PNG? Should it be a JPEG? Like, I don't, I'm not an expert on that, and I don't like thinking about that. And I really love that Cloudinary is just like, yeah, we're able to analyze, assess your image, understand exactly what you need to optimize this for the space, and we're going to give
Yeah.
you that format. And I honestly, that's just a huge win for me because I
Yeah,
don't want to think about that, and that's not something I want to become a expert in. So
absolutely.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I love the aspect that it just works. It makes it nice and easy. Something I do want to point to is if you open up that demo app quickly that I had created and published,
The finished one.
hmm the other tab, I think,
Yeah, it is the other
and we
tab.
go to Brazil and we load that page with the network tab.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
With with the network tab
So
there.
my account has AVIF enabled on it. So we can see that AVIF actually greatly reduces it even further. So I think is it that top image?
Um,
So
yep.
we get a whole nother, 200 kilobytes is it off of that image because we use an even more modern and efficient format than what WebP is. So I
So if I
just thought I would point that out. Yeah.
yeah, so if I wanted Avith, or if I want some of these other formats that are maybe more efficient, how would I turn that on?
So I think it's on an account by account basis right now. I have to get the exact details of what that is. It might be an enterprise thing right now, but I can't quote you on that. So I'd have to get more details of what that actually involves.
All right. Well, insert fry meme and we'll move on from there.
Sounds good. Um, so yeah, so we have that top image covered. What's
Oh,
next?
wrong one.
I think the next thing we can look at is that video then, right? Um,
Yeah.
so this video, it's fine. But what can we do to maybe give a little bit of better experience for the player, but also just kind of serve it in a more optimized way. Now, this is a very short video that I just found. I think it's like Pexels or something. So we're probably not going to see a huge difference in this particular one. Well, I guess once you start playing it, we see that it's 6 megabytes. So it's the actual size of the video that was downloaded, right? Um, but we'll also see what else we can do, which would help some longer videos. I couldn't find long free videos without, uploading one of my own. So that was a constraint here. But we can see kind of what we're working with. So did you upload this one into your account as well?
I I did. I have it
Perfect.
right here.
Perfect. So the first step that we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with CLD image, but we're going to now do it with the video player. So you can literally, so yeah, we can start looking at this, but we're going to use the CLD video player component for this one. So it's at the bottom there.
Yeah, sorry, I got
No, no, no.
turned around.
But the gist is it's the width, height, and sort. That's all you need from it, and we handle the rest by default. Of course, there's a lot of configuration options to enhance the experience and customize it to your liking. You can even customize your own logo, theme colors, all that stuff. But ultimately, these are the basics that you need just to get a nice standard optimized player. So from a technical implementation perspective, we're going to start off the same way as the CLD image, where we want to opt into that use client without affecting the rest of the application. So the inside your components directory, we can literally just clone that CLD image file and call it CLD video player.
I don't have a duplicate function, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
I
just
that's funny. I forgot that that's something that I have to install whenever I'm. It's crazy
yeah,
that that's not a default setting, right?
I, it would be cool if they had that, but it's also not something I think I use on the regular.
Oh, fair
Um,
enough.
yeah. Before we move on though, I did copy
Sure.
the video, and I want to make sure that I'm putting that somewhere so I don't
Okay.
have it later. So I'm just gonna stick it right there real quick.
Sounds good.
All right.
Uh,
So yeah,
so
so
so I'd actually copy the insides of CLD image, and then what I usually do for this particular example kind of thing is I just multi-select the CLD image and then just replace it with CLD video player, and that's all. Like that's literally all you need to do, and you have your component. So now we can import this into our um, the destination page.
just gonna change the name to
Sounds good.
align, get some consistency
I
there.
thought that was just a preference, so I wasn't gonna point it
No,
out.
I forgot it was called video player.
Yeah.
We're good. We're gonna make
Awesome.
this look good. So we
Sweet.
go to this page, and
Yep.
now it's
Import the CLD video player just the same.
and we
Um,
can. If people are curious, mine auto imported it right here.
yeah. Perfect. And then for the most part, I think we just need the width and the height, and then the source, and we just need to update the source to be um, the public ID. And I don't think we need controls there. I think we show the controls by default, but of course you can turn the controls off if you'd like.
So if I do exactly what you just said there, and we go load our page,
Oh,
um,
there's one more thing that I forgot to do is on the CLD video player page, we also need to import the CSS file. That's one constraint. Unfortunately, with the app router, I can't automatically include that CSS. At least I haven't figured out a way to. I'd love to open to suggestions. But one way I was getting around that in the pages router is by using the head tag, which you get a warning about it because you're not supposed to do that. But I was including the CSS as part of that so that somebody wouldn't have to do that themselves. But in the app router, that's not possible. So what you need to do is also import that CSS file from the package inside of this page. So I have an easily copyable snippet because I don't know it by heart inside the documentation. If you want to flip over there quick.
yeah, I would love that snippet.
Yep, it's
This
that
one
line
right
right
here.
there. Yeah. It's funny,
Beautiful.
the syntax highlighting makes it easy to miss in that instance, which I never noticed before. Because like the dark green, it just your eye doesn't catch it. At least mine
I,
didn't.
I I think for me it was this was just telling me about something, and I didn't think this was an
Uh,
instruction.
Maybe I need to rearrange it and move it up or something, or add
Maybe.
additional text to make it clear that you need to do both. Maybe like a
Yeah.
steps or something. Anyways, we're getting off track.
Yeah, we're getting off track, but
Yeah,
I mean it's a quality improvement. Let's
yeah,
improve our community
that's great.
documentation,
Yeah,
make it easier for everybody. I love it.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, but now,
Okay, so
did we miss anything? I don't think so. Yeah, so now we have our player, and you can click play. It should play. Um,
okay.
it's looking
I
great.
I don't know if this is coming across my screen share very well. But I'm gonna undo the change for a second. Because I something caught my eye, or okay, maybe I'll go put a video back in place and just be cool about it.
You can load both.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just so we could see them side by side because I it caught my eye very explicitly. Um, if I could use my keyboard today.
And for what it's worth, I
So
don't think that the sizing wasn't being respected for some reason. So you'll notice that the size is a little bit different. Um, I think
yeah,
I think it's because by default it tries to be responsive, so it might need to be the container. Yeah, that's a tangent, but I just thought I'd point that out.
yeah, I need to go grab the original URL is my actual problem. I
Mm.
was like, why is this not? Okay, let me just copy that and hopefully I can paste it in just like I want. It wasn't showing the other example for some reason. So, okay, now I have both. So, this is the thing that caught my eye more than anything. And it's really apparent on these umbrellas here. In this upper video, they look pixelated as I'm watching it, and like the refresh rate's there, and
Oh
then
yeah,
like
I
there's
see
almost like a
the
effect going, and it's like
yeah.
very obvious with these umbrellas. But then when I come play it here, that same effect's not there at all. I don't feel like there's any. I don't know what
That's
the technical term is, but like
that's super
the
interesting.
Cloudinary made the bitrate so much better that it actually streams better. Um,
Huh.
it is aliased. That's the word I was looking for. Yes, it's not coming across very obviously, but it is very much aliasing
You can definitely
this
see
upper
it.
image. Yeah,
Honestly, I can't speak towards that because I had no idea. Um,
if you look like right here specifically
yeah,
on these
you
umbrellas,
can
it's
see it jumping around.
really yeah, it's very obvious right there. And then if you look at the same
Hmm.
umbrellas almost at the same frame here, you won't see it here. It's very interesting.
Wow.
Um Well, there you go. We didn't even know we were making our videos better, but we totally, I mean, we knew we were making them better. We just didn't know
I was
how.
wondering, do you think it might be a resize thing because it's not resizing the video itself? I don't know, just throwing an idea out there.
I mean, here, let's take these out for a second and just see what happens.
Fair, yeah.
Um, doesn't hurt. Oh, I guess it is a
It
resize
might
thing.
be that I guess Chrome might not be resizing it in a great way. I don't know if it would be Chrome's fault or not. I'm just but it looks like it might be an issue with the resizing. Not that I don't want to credit Cloud9 for something like that, but technically it looks like it's part of the issue is just the resizing isn't really doing a great job there for that particular example.
Yeah. Well, that was cool to validate that,
Yeah, that's
and look
interesting.
at things. It caught my eye the first time I watched the
Totally
video. I was
never
like, man,
noticed
that
that. That's interesting. Yeah.
I wonder if part of it is it's not resizing because I didn't pass the class prop, but that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
No, that didn't make sense to me at all.
It might be that container issue, thinking about it. But I think like if we look at the files that are being loaded um, in the network tab, we're not loading that 6 MB video anymore. And I kind of can't keep track based off of this.
Oh, yeah, here, let's do this. Let's load both of them. So we have both of them, and then we can play them. Uh, Although this one's optimized all of a sudden. Where's this one's video?
I wonder if it's not showing up as a media type.
Yeah, that would be strange.
Because I remember seeing it before and it was 6 MB. Man,
I do
I know
too.
like trying to test out demos, like I always have a weird time trying to show the size because it's not consistent every single time in how it shows it
Yeah.
for the
Well,
native player.
I would have assumed this was the 6 meg one, and then here's the Cloudinary one. I feel like this is the overlay, not the image
It's
itself.
partial content. Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Well, here's another way we can optimize it. And again, like the video that we have in here is a short video, so it's not as beneficial as it could be for longer videos, but adaptive bitrate, which I can't speak on it super technically, but ultimately it's a streaming format that helps with things with which helps with the playback UX. Things like making sure that we're automatically sending the resolution that makes the most sense for your network connection, those kind of things. Just enhancing the experience. You might have noticed that in like Netflix when you're watching videos, and maybe you've seen it jump around because your network's kind of laggy. It's trying to do its best to keep up, or YouTube as well. But we can enhance the experience, especially for no matter what visitors we have. So if we go to the CLD video player documentation and we go to examples, then on the right, adaptive streaming, we can see the example of what we need to do there. And all we need to do is copy and paste that transforms and source types props. And I want to make this easier so that maybe you just need one prop. I just haven't implemented that yet. But for now, we just have these two props where you paste them in, and that's going to give you the HLS. Where if we now go back, we shouldn't notice too much. If you want to hard refresh the page so the player can initialize again. But if we play the video, It's going to take an extra second to load the first time because at this point it's processing that video. But give it a second, and every time after that, it'll load fast. Video is intensive to process, of course. But
Hmm.
now we shouldn't really notice a difference now. But if you hover over the player and you can now see that cog, which you can now select the resolution that you're playing it back in. And that's something you again might have seen in YouTube, where maybe it's playing at a really low resolution and you don't know why. You can kind of see that where auto is going to automatically detect things like the network condition. Now, of course, you set it manually, you can see, but if we set it to auto, and if you go to your network tab and select throttling and go to fast or slow, doesn't really matter, and we reload the page, or maybe it will do that like that. I wasn't sure if you need to refresh.
We'll
So,
refresh anyway,
so,
just to triple check. It's also nice to see how fast like some of these
oh,
images load
sure.
now.
Yeah.
Still not the fastest, but
Yeah.
also I can tell you a lot of this is just Next.js initialization. Like we haven't even gotten to use client components loading yet, which is
Yeah.
part of the problem.
We can see there the main app is still,
Yeah, chugging away.
yeah.
If you're wondering
Once it
why,
loads in.
if you're wondering why you might want to use Next.js, this is a reason not to sometimes. We still like it though.
Yeah. But now with the playback, yeah, fast 3G is not very fast. Now we can see that because our network connection is a lot slower, we're still able to view that video, maybe not optimally, but we're still able to view that video in a reasonable resolution based off of our network conditions. I think this also takes into consideration your GPU, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah. Oh, that I think I understand why we're having trouble like with the size stuff too. I think the way that the video was loading before was just bulk wholesale because it was running locally on the machine, but Cloudinary is
Mm,
actually streaming the video chunks as we're watching it. So we
right.
actually only are serving
Makes
like
sense.
less than a kilobyte at a time to the client as they're
Mm,
watching the video.
true. Especially now
Um,
with the streaming, I think that is even more so. And again, I'll say this one more time. If it's a longer video, you're going to see like this is going to be more beneficial. It's, as I understand it, not as beneficial for shorter videos. So like it might not make sense to opt into it for a 10-second video, but longer videos, a couple minutes and so on, you're going to see the benefits mostly there.
I love it. This is amazing
Cool.
so far.
Yeah, awesome. So I think we're probably good with the video for now, unless you want to play with customization. But I think if not, we can get to the uploads. What do you think?
I think let's do uploads because I think
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
like I think well actually hold on, I do have a question before we get there.
sure.
So I didn't ask this question. I kind of just took it for granted. But like you gave us this amazing way of just like, hey, how do we want to stream things and what are the source types? Like, where did that information come from? Like I see it inside of the examples here, but like where can I look up the documentation that tells me what these values are and how can I learn more about those?
Sure.
I think that's something I
So
ran into an issue with one time. I
yeah,
learned, but I
so
want
I would
everybody else to.
yeah, absolutely. So I would just literally, if you want to open up a new tab, Google Cloudinary Adaptive Bitrate Streaming. That's probably just the easiest way to find it rather than trying to tell you to type in a URL. But here we can actually learn more about adaptive bitrate streaming itself. What it is, how it works, and all that different stuff, what the different features that we provide around it. This is probably going to be your best bet from that perspective. Now, in our particular example, the CLD video player actually is a wrapper around the Cloudinary video player, which is a widget. It's a script include. So we wrap it to make it easier to embed in your page in a kind of Next.js native way. But we're using that particular implementation of it. Not that it's really that much different than anything you would see here, but just, a caveat is like the API as it currently stands is reflective of that.
Hmm, got it. So the options that appear here, so I would assume these are probably the options that would have been supported inside of the streaming profile. So like I
Yeah.
could have done these as well in theory. Like I could have put 4K or full HD.
That's my understanding. And then if you see in the right column, it's supported for, and then you have the HLS or you have Dash.
Well, there we go. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious. It's
Yeah.
always interesting trying to map the wrappers to the actual API. So that was one I was curious about.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to bridge the gap between business objectives and tech implementation, and it can get messy. This dot is trusted by top names like Meta, Google, and T-Mobile, and they love helping business leaders fulfill their strategic digital initiatives. Check them out at thisdot.co. One more time, that's thisdot.co.
Awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, let's do the next thing.
Yeah, so the next thing then would be the uploading. So in our example, we want to show some traveler photos. We want to give our friends a way to upload their own experiences and kind of see what this looks like. Now, the way that we're going to do this, it's tricky for how we want to both embed this upload widget, but also thinking about how server components and client components communicate. But we're kind of going to skip that because in a real world scenario, you're not going to want to just submit a user generated photo and just display it on the page. Who knows what's inside that photo? You want to have some kind of moderation flow in front of that. So we're going to just kind of bypass thinking about that altogether and think about it more from a realistic use case perspective. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop in an upload button that's going to allow us to provide that upload mechanism. But then once somebody uploads it, it's going to shift it into a moderation queue where once approved or disapproved, or ultimately we'll have these approved photos, we can display those on the page by querying it from within the component. And of course, that's subject to the caching life cycle that I don't think we will really touch on here, but you can really set that to whatever you'd like.
Now you mentioned the moderation flow, and that makes a lot of sense in the context of this site. But with something like a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, social media sharing, where we don't really want to moderate as heavily, is there a way
For
to
sure.
maybe do post moderation, like somebody reports an image and then go in and do the same?
So that's a good question. I don't know if there's something native to Cloudinary for that. I don't know. So the way that the moderation queue works is you push something into it. So you'd have to push it into that moderation queue afterwards, which I don't
Mm.
know. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, if you want to, you could like tag the photo as reported or something, and then you can have some kind of webhook where if it receives that tag, you can kick off some kind of notification to review that reported image or video or whatever you want to do. So there's ways around that, but there's not necessarily a first class report mechanism as there is a moderation mechanism, right?
Got it. So always safer to moderate, approve, then approve, then try to moderate later.
Yeah, and of course, I think it depends on your use case, like as you kind of alluded to. Now, in our instance, if we have anybody in the world uploading to our site, we don't know who those people are and what they're uploading. So we definitely want to put that moderation first. But if I have my own profile and I want to upload pictures to my own profile, and of course, a social media site, they're not going to put that block in there. Maybe if they flag it with some automated process in the first place, but having that user submitted reporting, I think is definitely a handy feature for that kind of scenario. And it's just, you would have to kind of figure out how you want to flag it, where you want to store that flag, whether it is a tag or if you're using a database, a new row that has that report, so on and so forth.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to it then.
That'd be an interesting tutorial or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So,
I'm just gonna tell this team, hey, write that down.
yeah.
I think we're gonna go for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So I think and I think also a good tutorial would be how to communicate that client uploaded image and revalidate the page in like a
Yes.
first class way, right? Um, for the example of like a social media site or something. So back to the topic. Man, I'm getting a tangent because I'm thinking, so another app that what I did is I loaded the initial data with the server, and then I pass it off to React Query. So then at that point, it's a client app, right? And then I can refresh that data on the page using that React Query mechanism. But then the next time the page reloads, then I'll get that server request again. So I guess it really just depends on how you want to architect that. No more tangents. Now, so we have two options for the uploading, where we have the upload button and we have the upload widget. Now, the button, as it kind of sounds like, it's just going to render a simple button, and it doesn't even include any styles or anything like that. But it's going to give us a way to easily drop in that button and then have that upload capability. Whereas
Okay.
the upload widget gives you more control over the UI that you're defining. So if you look inside there, you're going to be able to render that button. Now, the tricky thing is with this component is I don't think that there's a way to use this directly inside of a React server component ever, because I don't think you can pass the function like that, even if we did wrap that, especially because like you need that on-click handler and all that. So I don't think that there's a way for this to ever be a first-class server component. However, with the button component, because we're rendering that button, and this isn't implemented yet, what I'm thinking is how can I pass maybe a form action to that, so that, or a server action, so that we can invoke that server action from the component. Now we don't have that here, so we're gonna actually just wrap it with we'll see what we're gonna be doing. But that's just a future thought. So what we're gonna start off by doing, tangents aside, is we're going to basically just
Good tangents.
create a clone of the button component similar to what we did with the CLD image and CLD video player. So we can start there.
Okay, so let me open up my file tree, I guess. And let's go create a new.
That duplicate button.
Yeah,
I'm
it would
telling
be
you.
really nice to have that right now.
It's funny because
Okay,
like in my
so
workflow, whenever I'm creating new components, I always duplicate and work from there, just because I find it easier to create things. So it's just funny the differences in workflows.
I I don't typically have to do a lot of cloning, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that makes sense to me. That
Yeah.
sounds like a great idea. Okay, so that should have fixed that.
Cool. So then back on the page, we're gonna just simply drop that in to start. That's not gonna get us very far, but we can at least start to see that we can drop in a button.
Okay, so where do I want to drop it? I'm thinking up
So
here in
yeah,
this section.
yeah, I think the styles are good for having it there, where I have it flexed with the space between. Um, so the CLD upload
Didn't
button.
remember the name.
Yep. And if we reload that in the app, we should see that
We
there's
got
a button. It's not very pretty or anything. I mean, it's fine if you want to just have like the text-oriented upload, but right now it's not really doing much, right? Now, if you want, you can copy some button styles. I have it in the GitHub repo if you want to make it look like a traditional button. That's probably the easiest way. Just there's some Tailwind on it. It's actually in the app, yeah, on the destination
uh,
page there.
yeah. Navigating the old-fashioned way is not my forte, apparently.
This will also be
So,
some spoilers as to what we're gonna do, but that's okay.
yeah, we'll just borrow the Tailwind code for a second and ignore everything. You saw nothing. You saw nothing. Cool. That's a nice looking
Yeah,
button. I like
so we
that
have our
button.
button. And if you click it, it should open up the upload widget, and it does. Now, the tricky thing is if you try to upload something, it's just not going to work. We have two different ways that we can provide uploads. We have unsigned and we have signed, where unsigned is going to be trying to upload something without any kind of like authentication, or we're not going to use our API secret or anything like that. While it has our use cases, it's more narrow as to where you might want to use unsigned, because ultimately you probably want to have some control over the assets that are getting uploaded to your account. So we're just going to bypass that and not even use it as an option. But the way that you can set that up if you want in the future is you can create an upload preset and enable unsigned uploads for that. Now we're still going to use an upload preset for what we're doing here, but we're not going to do it for unsigned uploads. So the way that it works for signed uploads is we want to create a signing endpoint. So what's going to happen is when the upload widget tries to upload something, it's going to pass in all the parameters to this endpoint. It's going to return a signature token, and it's going to use that as part of the upload process. So if we want to head over to the documentation, I have an example that we'll be able to paste in, so we don't have to write this by hand. So under, and it looks like I should probably move it to a shared location, but under the upload widget, I have that signed uploads link. And here we can see the way that this is going to work, and the API between the widget and the button is the same, where we're going to pass in this prop called signature endpoint, which is going to be /API/ whatever you decide to call it. So ultimately, we're going to want to put that on our button. But then we need to actually define that API endpoint. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use the Cloudinary Node SDK, and we're going to use it inside of a function endpoint where we provide that easy way to sign the request. And that code is already ready that you can just simply copy and paste that into your API route. So we have
All
two
right,
things.
well,
We need to first or second install the Cloudinary SDK, but we need to also create that endpoint.
I'll do that in the background while we're moving on
Sounds
ahead.
good.
We're gonna press on ahead.
Sounds good.
What did we
So
call this?
I usually
I'm gonna
call it
call it the
sign
thing.
clouding params. Yeah,
I like your naming convention.
well, I
I
appreciate
also
that.
almost named it incorrectly. So, and then it's just route.ts.
Yes.
Now I should be able to just copy,
Yep.
paste.
And that should work as is. The only thing that I'm wondering is if that needs to be next Cloudinary API key. Let me double check my code here. I might need to update that in the example. Yeah, why don't you
Uh,
update the API key? And I need to update that in the docs. Can you update the API key to include next public in front of the API key?
yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing for just a second for the exact reason that I stated earlier. And it's actually funny. That is actually what I named it in
In
my
the end?
env.
Okay,
Yeah, so my env is actually next public
perfect.
already.
I need
Yeah,
to fix
so
that inside the docs then.
yeah, so that one's next public. I don't think it needs to
Yeah.
be next public for what it's worth. But
So
because
I think we need to pass in that API key inside of the
from
client code. So
ah,
I think that's
then
why
in
it
that
needs to
case,
be.
yes.
Yeah. I'll double check that. But if I remember correctly, it wasn't working without it. So I'll confirm that. But anyways, either way, yeah, so you get the little nice TypeScript errors away. But
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, I should probably, since I'm running this as TypeScript, I could probably do that inside the example as well. That's good too.
Well, usually the way you would fix this, and we're actually going to be posting a blog post on this very soon. One of our engineers wrote it, but it's about how to set your environment variables at the process level so they're recognized by
Oh,
TypeScript. That's
interesting.
that's the better way, I think, is
Yeah,
you don't want to have
sounds like it.
to, yeah, because they could be undefined, but you need them to be defined, and
Yeah,
I,
nice.
anyway, yeah.
I'll be
So
sure to read that
we'll
one.
have. Yeah, I might just jump that in the queue so it beats this video now. Um, there we go. Okay, so we got our secret set up,
Yep.
and we've got our as
And it,
string, so that
and it makes
everything's
sense
happy
how
here.
that's working. So we see the params to sign. That's not something we have to do. That's going to come from the upload widget, but it's going to pass in to that utility, which is to sign the request. And then we simply pass it back.
Yeah, and I guess we're using our secret here as a salt effectively for the signature, and that's getting encoded either as like a JWT or some other encoded hashed format, and that's the secret to unencoding it on the Cloudinary side.
Sounds about right. I don't know exactly technically what's going on behind the scenes with that particular
That's fair enough.
encoding. I think it's in the documentation for how all that how the signature process works in case you want to sign your own sign the request yourself. Because one particular instance where you can't use the Node SDK, such as like the Edge runtimes, which don't support Node SDKs sometimes. We can't do that. So if you need to manually sign, which is definitely not the optimal way, it shows you how to do that manually. And I think it includes the information about how that signing process works if you're interested in checking that out.
I'll recommend that everybody should go read that just for their own education. But we don't
There you
have
go.
time for that today, so we're going to keep
Yep, yep,
going.
yep. Cool. So we have our route endpoint. I think we just need to add the add that prop, the signature endpoint, to
Yeah.
our, because you already set up your environment variables. So I think that's the last thing for that.
Okay. So in here we can now maybe you'll let me do a two-liner since I'm putting something else. And we did call ours, in fact, API sign cloudinary params.
Perfect.
So that should work just like that,
Yeah, so let's
theoretically.
test it out.
All right. Back to our page, give it a refresh. And let's try to upload a file. And I have some nice photos that you sent me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that looks like it worked.
Fantastic. Now we're not going to be able to really access it unless like we inspect the upload request right now. But if we head over to your Cloudinary account, you should be able to see that photo now in the root of the project. Yay, we
Hey,
see
there it
it.
is.
So we have a successful upload. Now, part of our goal here is to upload these in a way that we can programmatically up or access just those images, as well as how we can actually kick it off into the moderation queue. So for this, we're going to go ahead and use an upload preset, which we can then define on the upload button. So the first thing is actually we're going to do that and we're going to add tags, which we'll get to in a second. But let's start off with that upload preset, where if we go to the cog on the bottom left-hand side of your Cloudinary tab here, and we go to the upload tab, we see that the upload preset section towards the bottom there, where what I was alluding to before, the on-site uploads, we're not going to cover that, but if you did want to, you can see that there's an example there. But what we'll want to do is let's click the add upload preset, where you can name this really whatever you want. You can leave that random ID if you want, or you can call it something like Dustin's travel website. Though I
That'd be
do
my
think that it
cool
needs to
travel
be,
website.
I don't think you can use characters. I think it needs to be like like no apostrophes, hyphens, or whatever. I don't even know
That's
if you can
fine.
use uppercase, but you can try it.
Let's have fun with it. If it has to be lowercase,
Yeah.
it has to be lowercase.
Um,
Um,
but yeah,
oh,
so
we
what
can, and
I
this is
think
how I can do the folders. That was gonna be my next question. I was like, I don't want everything at the root of my project. It's gonna make it all sloppy. How do I
Yeah,
fix
yeah,
that?
exactly. So we kind of have two ways of organizing our content, where what I've found or have heard from some of my colleagues is the way a lot of these massive companies that have, thousands of assets, they just use tags for a lot of this stuff. But, depending on your use case, folders are certainly an appropriate way to do this as well, depending on what you're trying to do. I like to use folders. So we can use this, user uploaded folders or photos, and whenever something's uploaded, it's then added to that particular folder. Now let me just double check my upload preset, because I think there's one more thing at least that we want to do. The first one is going to be that moderation. So if we head over to the upload control tab on the
Oh,
left.
okay, right here.
Yep.
Got it.
We have a ton of different ways that we can, we don't need the async, but we see that we have a ton of different moderation techniques there, where we have a bunch of add-ons where you could automatically analyze this image. And if it finds an issue with it, it can automatically kick it into that queue without us even having to touch it. However, in our case, we're just going to use manual and we're just going to manually review these for now. So if you want to check the manual, and I just want to point out one more thing in the media analysis and AI section there. Actually, let's point out two things. First of all, in the media, in the left sidebar, you can also do things like auto tagging. So say you want to analyze the image, see what all is in that image, and add tags based off of that. Maybe images with a tree, images with a mountain, or whatever it is. It'll automatically analyze that. That way you have a really easy way to search on your photos or videos whenever you come back into your media library, or if you're trying to make those searches generally. There's also a lot of other things that we can do. We'll come back to another example where we'll see how we can automatically generate captions. We'll get to that in a second. But generally speaking, do I have any tags on this? No, we'll do that manually from the code. And I guess the only other thing is upload manipulations that's worth pointing out on the left there, where given we're working with user-generated content, say somebody uploads a 6,000 by 6,000 image, do we want to store a 6,000 by 6,000 user-generated image? Probably not. But what you can do is anytime that image is uploaded, we can transform it so that we can reduce it down to 1,000 or whatever's appropriate for your particular use cases. That could surely impact storage if a ton of people are uploading that many things. I think you can even optimize it, if I'm not mistaken, just to optimize how your content is getting stored from people you don't know.
I'm gonna go ahead and just add that 1,000 by 1,000. I think that's a
Awesome.
good maximum.
Yeah, cool.
Um, and one thing you didn't mention it. You told me this, and this is why it's here in the first place. But this is an add-on, right?
So the manual
The
moderation is
media
not.
analysis.
So the analysis part of it is an add-on. So if we go back to it for a second, Or is that what we're on?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is media analysis.
so if we look under the categorization, yeah, so not moderation, the analysis, there are add-ons, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but we're not using it quite yet. But for the ones that are listed there, those are all add-ons, and we'll see how we can use different detection add-ons in order to achieve that. I don't know if literally everything on here is an add-on. It may be. Like I think you can
Okay.
use face detection without it, unless that's referring to advanced face detection. Um, of
Fair
course,
enough.
tags is not an add-on. Tags is something you can add. Like you can add Dustin to all your images if you want. Um, but
Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think we're good though, and I think we can hit save. Now remember that if you want to copy that name, we can head back over to our upload button. And we're going to define a prop of upload preset, capital P. And then we can
Love
pass that in.
autocomplete.
Yeah. So let's try that out now. And we can see what
Okay.
happens to your image.
All right. So let's hit upload more. Why not?
Let's do
Or
it.
maybe let's
So
refresh.
yeah, because every time that page reloads, the widget is initialized, and especially if it's open, it wouldn't have been initialized. So as we can see, that was a 3.2 megabyte file. That's probably a big file, alluding to the transformations that you added on upload. But once it is uploaded,
All right. If we go back over to the other way, so my programmable media,
so I think you'll want to actually go to the. Oh yeah, okay.
and then if I click in here,
So remember, it was kicked off to the moderation now, right? We added the moderation.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
So where do I go to moderate?
So in the left, we're going to want to go to the dam, which should be that second one. Yep.
I love that it's called damn.
There's some good puns
Okay.
around it too. So if we go to the moderation tab now, top left, top right,
Top.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
We now see that image. So now somebody can't upload it and without us approving it first. And of course, we're happy with this image. We approve it. Something to also note is the resolution on the bottom there, if you didn't miss it. Well, now we can go back to look in that folder that it was placed in.
Yeah. We'll do another one and go play with it before the end of this. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sounds
I
good.
moved
No,
too
no, no,
quick.
no. I just wanted to point out for that image that you uploaded is now, if we double click and look at the metadata, it is now 1000 width because you put that resize, which is super handy,
Oh,
right? So
my
instead
eyes
of
totally
storing,
caught that on the last screen. I forgot to
so
call it out.
so instead of the 3 megabyte image, you're only storing that 280 kilobyte image. So, that makes a big difference for storage, especially if you're trying to be, lean with that. So yeah. So what's next? So let me look at my project.
So in this case, like if I refresh the page now, I don't see my image. So maybe that's the next thing.
Yeah, perfect. So let's actually dynamically look up those images and dump them in the page. So because we're using React Server components, we are now blessed with the ability to query using the Node SDK. Since we have that installed already, the first thing we need to import it, we need to configure it, which we can copy and paste that code from our API route that we created. So yeah, basically all that on the top.
Oop.
Now you could probably, if you want to abstract that config and put it in like a, get the client or whatever you want, but for our purposes, it's not necessary. But now you have access to the Cloudinary SDK where we're going to use, let me look up the actual request. So we're going to use the cloudinary.search API. So if you want to start cloudinary.search, and then we're going to, just like that, and then expression. And what we're going to pass inside here is we're going to start off with our folder. So if you want to create a new string, and it's going to be, well, it's a string for
Oh,
this one,
okay. Got it.
and it's going to be folder equals, and then your folder
Uh,
name.
and that's going to be user, what did I call it? User uploaded photos.
Yeah. Now, in my example that I created, since I have a cloud account with different projects inside, something that I additionally did was I added a tag for each of the images, and then I'm also requesting that tag just to make sure that I'm looking for the exact right place. Probably not necessary in your use case, but it's just worth mentioning that you have different ways of organizing your content in order to do it to get only the content that you want for your page. But
Did I
let's
make some
console
good
log that out and
assumptions
make sure
there?
that works. Yeah, let's console log that out. I think the only thing you need to do at the end is add .execute for the request.
Let's go ahead and do that as a just assuming I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Um,
and we can
and
see
actually,
already in the results there, we have our
yeah,
images. Fantastic.
yay.
It looks like just that one, which is the only one that you moderated. So now we should be able to simply loop through those. Um, and I already have a little bit of UI, so we can just recreate that list item. As you might imagine, we're going to try to replace that image with CLD image since we can.
Okay. So we should grab all of this,
Yeah.
stick it here, and then we'll need to put a key on this, I'm guessing.
Yep.
What's our
I was wondering,
do
do you
these have
need keys for
IDs?
React Server components?
You're supposed to still,
You're supposed to
but you
still?
don't
Okay.
have to.
I was curious
You
about
don't
that.
have,
Yeah.
yeah.
So for key, I usually just use the public ID since that's going to be unique. So user image dot public underscore ID. Yep. Um, and we can also import that CLD image component so that we can replace the image tag.
Yep. So CLD image.
Perfect. And then let's see, the classing's good. I think, yep, you need to update that with the, and then .url should be .public ID. And the only thing I did in mine is because that could be varying width and heights, as we saw in the homepage example, I just made that uniform. The value I used was 526 because I think that was the max that it could be for that particular UI. And then a crop of fill to make sure that we crop that into a nice square format.
Did you have a height?
Yeah, 526, sorry.
Oh, that was the height.
I
What
didn't
about the
mention
width?
ahead of time that it was a square. So
Oh, well, there you go.
yeah. The
That's
only
what
other
I
thing
was
is,
missing.
so the types didn't pass through. So for now, you really just need to, if you want to manually add the public ID type on that user image.
Oh yeah. ID string.
Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
Cool.
Cool.
So let's see if that worked. It's yelling
We're
about
unhappy
something.
because something is not a map. And I can tell you it's because I literally did this the other day on a
So
different string. It's not user images, it's
so
something on user
so
images.
you need to destructure so it's going to be resources, user images dot resources. So however you want to do that. You can destructure that and rename it. Or however you want to do it.
Resources. How about we do this as user images?
I think it's colon user images, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah, I think that
Sometimes
should.
I know how to JS, sometimes I don't. Um,
It's still not showing up.
Still not
So now
showing
let's
up.
console log. So we do have that, right?
Well, here, let's see. Let's make sure I didn't miss it entirely. So we have an array,
Yeah.
array of objects.
Did you return the list item? That always catches me. Maybe you did it, but at the bottom.
I
That
thought
see, that always gets me too. I always forget to
I
do that.
usually always default to doing parentheses for that
Oh, do
very
you?
reason.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
I like the return statement syntax, but I always forget to actually include it. But there we go. We have our travel photo.
Hi, we're smart
Now,
people. We make
yeah,
mistakes.
exactly. So now let's actually reproduce that flow. So let's upload another photo.
Okay. And let's do the Davi Coast.
The same one.
Oh, oops.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Here, we'll do
Now you can deny that moderation because it already exists, right? You're just
yep.
showing an example. But as we see, it doesn't show up right away because we're currently pushing to that moderation flow. Now, one thing that you could do is you can use a toast like Sonner or something to pop up a little message. Oh, hey, thanks for submitting the photo or whatever. But for now, I don't think we're gonna get into that. But now we can reject that one because we already have it. There actually might even be a duplicate moderation that you could automatically do. Don't quote me on that, but I think I remember seeing that.
I saw it too.
Yeah,
I was thinking about turning it on, but I decided against
yeah.
it for the demo's sake.
Hindsight. But now we can see we have both of our images. They showed up nicely after that moderation queue, and that worked out pretty nicely.
And if we actually look at our images, they're nice and small too.
Oh yeah, nice and cropped and resized, doing what we
I
can.
like that. Yeah, I love all of that.
Yeah,
Now
cool.
here
Yeah,
you were mentioning the tags, and I was actually thinking about the tags for a minute because one of the other things is if I go to any other page now, like let's say Italy,
yeah.
I'm gonna have Brazil photos, aren't I?
Yep, yep. So the way that I'm handling it in my example is I'm dynamically creating a tag based off of that destination page. So if we open up the app, in the upload button, what we can do is we can set a new prop called options, and that's going to be an object where we're going to define our tags, which is going to be an array. But then here we can add whatever tags we want, similar to the upload preset, but here we can actually make them dynamic. So the way that I did it is I appended destination hyphen, and then I dynamically created that string, just so if I wanted to ever query that specific thing as opposed to anything that's Brazil, right? Just having that differentiator. Um, but
Something like
now
that.
if we were to upload it with that, it would include that tag. And then we can include that tag as part of that resource query. So yeah, if you want to go through that.
Yeah, let's get a couple more maybe. I like that because I can actually do both images at once. It didn't stop me.
Yeah.
Um, so
And you
now if I
can, for what
go,
it's worth, you can limit it to one at a time if you prefer. But it is nice that, it does work with multiple images if you prefer.
yeah. So see the size changes, see the all that. So let's just approve them, I guess.
Yep.
If I go to my media now, I should be able to inside of my user upload folder here, I guess. If I look at the last two I submitted, I should be able to see tags on it,
As
right?
long as it worked. So
Assuming
maybe
it
it didn't
worked.
work. So I wonder if you needed to refresh the page to reinitialize the widget. That was my only concern, that it was too late for me to call
Oh.
it out.
I move too fast sometimes. That's on me. So here, let's do this maybe. Let's upload all four
Sure.
all over
And
again.
what you can do is in the network tab, I mean, we can just look at the upload request. Is it showing? So those are the blobs, not.
Oh, I'm on image only. I gotta.
Oh, okay.
There
So
you
we
go.
can, yeah, and look at the payload at the top. And yeah, so we see the tags. So this time those tags should be included as part of that.
Okay. So if I go back this time to the dam, um, gotta stop those flood waters. I like it. And maybe can I multi-select approve?
I think so.
That would be that would be great.
Yeah.
So now, unfortunately, what's going to happen if I went to the right version of the app, I should see two copies of everything.
Yeah. But now what we can do is we can narrow down our results in that search expression. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add and in capital letters. So space and the word, it includes spaces around it. And we're going to have tags equals, and we're basically going to just create that same string, destination hyphen, but we're going to need to make that a dynamic string.
Yeah, we're gonna call this the tag. And
Sounds good.
we're just gonna make it a global, so in case I change it in one place, I change it in both places.
Perfect.
Um, the little quick refactor to make everybody's life a little better.
Of course.
Okay.
But now it requires both of those things, the folder and the tags, and it worked. Huzzah.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. And just so everybody could see it in the programmable media as well, because I didn't see it before and I was kind of curious where would the tag show. So in here, if I opened it now, I see it down here in the tags area. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
If your eyes aren't there it is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love all that.
Yeah. It's neat. Do we have time to do one more thing? I don't think we have time to do everything, but Do you want to do one more thing, or
If
is
it's
it
like
time
a
to stop?
2 minute thing, if it's a
Yeah,
2 minute thing, let's do it. If it's more than a 2 minute thing, we
it'd
might
be
have to call it.
yeah, it'd be more than a 2 minute thing. So I'll just kind of explain. So the only other thing that I wanted to do was add the automated captioning, which we would just need to. That's where we would add the content analysis add-on, and then we would opt in the images to that analysis. Where once it's on success, we can feed in automatically generated captions. Into the files, and then we can reference that. So with user generated content, I can't imagine all your user visitors would want to manually enter that caption. So what can we do? We can automatically generate that with AI, and make that as easy and painless as we possibly can.
So theoretically, I could come in here and make some changes in here, and it would work with a little bit of changes to the UI as well.
So here you would want to add the captioning into the detection field. I was going to show how to do that in the code. It doesn't really matter too much. But
Okay.
then we could define the on success flag as well, which would allow us to automatically populate that caption. I just released a DevHint or a YouTube video today, which shows how to do exactly that. So if there is interest in figuring that out, you can find it there.
Yeah. We'll put that link as part of this is like hey, here's where we were going with this, and now
Yeah.
you can, as an exercise to the user, you can go get your captioning. And I think the only thing to make people aware of is that AI add-on does have there's a free plan, but there's a cost associated to it as you grow in your usage.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So there's the one FYI, everyone, if you want to use it, there's a little bit of a price. Um, well, Colby, this was awesome. I enjoyed doing this demo with you. I think
Yeah, I had a lot
reading
of
the
fun.
chat, everybody else is having a lot of fun. Um,
Glad to hear that.
before we go, does anybody have any like last minute questions for Colby? I know we're at time, but I want to make sure that y'all have a chance. Going once. We're going twice.
Awesome.
Somebody says no, it was great, and
Love to
I
hear it.
couldn't agree more with him. Colby, you're amazing. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
You as
joining us
well.
today. Oh, thank you. Glad I could be of screen assistance.
You did well.
Thank you. Well, we really appreciate it. Colby, where can we find you on the internet? Where can people find you, follow you, interact with you? How would you like to hang
Pretty
out?
much everywhere at Colby Fayock. I have a YouTube channel that I publish mostly once a week, some tutorials. So go ahead and check me out. I'm on Twitter.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you everyone for coming. I can't talk today, apparently. This has been a training with this dot, and we're glad you stopped by. We'll see you at the next one.
See you, everybody.